One.
Hello guys, this is Anushka Nyamaroka and we'll be presenting on the India-Africa relations. So we're going to start with the background of historical background of India and Africa relations. So this started around 2000 BC. That is when it started, when Indians were traveling around the world, trying to find different items like gold and other stuff. So we have the proof of all of this through the items like spices and beads that are from India, which are found in Africa. And I can also talk about the language, the Swahili language, which is a combination of two languages which are spoken by Indians, the Hindu and the Gujarati. You also see the evidence of India-Africa relations through the buildings which are found in Africa and the culture in Africa. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the Islamic culture. We see a lot of people dressed in Indian way or a Islamic way, which is a proof of the Africa relations with India. And we also look at the buildings, like we can also see the relation through the buildings in Africa, like the Stone Town building, which is in Zanzibar. And now we move on to the colonial period, where we see India and Africa a contact, where India was colonized and Africa was also colonized. So that's why they shared the very same experience with the colonial leaders. And then when India got its independence in the 19th century, it helped Africa.
One.
Where we see India supporting Africa in the anti-colonial campaign or progress which was happening at the moment, where Indians help South Africans fight against the colonial leaders. And an example of these leaders was Nehru, and then later by was Mahatma Gandhi. For example, Nehru, who supported the African National Congress, which is the ANC. And then we are also going to discuss about the post-independence relation, where we see India supporting African decolonization. After gaining independence, India became a powerful voice advocating for decolonization for Africa at international platforms, including the United Nations. The Nehru foreign policy emphasized moral and diplomatic support for African liberation movement, offering targetable assistance in the form of educational scholarship, political support and training. Continuing on the post-colonial contact, there is political and diplomatic engagement, whereby we see in the 20th century, India had established diplomatic relations with most African nations, key figuring like Nkrumah of Ghana and Nyerere of Tanzania, saw India as a strategic ally in the global south, and two regions began to cooperate on issues of economic development and political sovereignty and post-colonial reconstruction.
My name is Kuzaidongo and I'll be presenting on a theoretical framework that best explains the relationship. The relationship between India and Africa can be understood through various lenses of international relations theories, each offering insights into different aspects of the dynamic partnership. However, there are three theories particularly that stand out in effectively explaining the relationship between India and Africa. Number one, South to South cooperation. Number two, dependency theory. Number three, neoliberal institutionalization. South to South cooperation, also known as SSC, refers to the exchange of resources, knowledge, and technology between developing countries of the global south. This framework has become increasingly relevant in the context of India and Africa relationship. SSC stresses solidarity, shared experiences of colonialism, and the desire for a more equitable world order. Dependency theory. While South cooperation offers a positive and mutually beneficial perspective on India-Africa relations, dependency theory provides a critical view, emphasizing how historical inequalities in global economic structures may perpetuate imbalances even in South-South relations. This theory is relevant in examining potential challenges and power dynamics between India and Africa. Neoliberal institutionalism. India and Africa's growing cooperation has been institutionalized through multilateral organizations such as the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and the United Nations. Neoliberal institutionalization emphasizes how these platforms allow developing countries to pool their resources and increase. Neoliberal institutionalism. India and Africa's growing cooperation has been institutionalized through multilateral organizations such as the World Trade Organization, the Monetary Fund, and the United Nations. Neoliberal institutionalism emphasizes how these platforms allow developing countries to pool their resources and increase their bargaining power. Neoliberal institutionalism also emphasizes the benefits of economic interdependence, which is a key feature of the India-Africa relations. The increasing trade volume, investment flows, and technology transfer between the two regions contribute to the economic stability and growth. You why you should study international relations at Africa University. What makes this program unique in contrast to many other programs offered in African institutions of higher learning is that it is very specific about the need to promote and defend African interests and act out a niche for the continent in the global politics. By studying international relations, you gain a comprehensive understanding of society, people, globalization, and multinational markets. This skill set is in high demand among leading employers, both private and public sectors. International relations today is an up-tempo and flourishing field with plenty of opportunity to travel. So, what are the entry requirements at Africa University to study international relations? Number one, at least 2 GCE advanced level passes or a relevant diploma. Number 2, 5 O-level passes at grade C or better, including English language. So, what are some of the careers that you can venture in after studying international relations? There are so many of these. Number 1, public sector. 2, journalism, international corporate finance, marketing, risk analysis, government social research, diplomats, diplomatic service, local government, human resources, and so much more.
My name is Chabula Matanga, and now we'll be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the relationship from each party. The relationship between India and Africa has seen significant developments in various sectors, bringing both advantages and disadvantages. This chapter explores these aspects, highlighting specific examples where mutual benefits have been realized, as well as areas where disadvantaged India has emerged as one of Africa's largest trading partners. So, to start off, we are going to look at advantages for Africa. The first advantage for Africa is in trade and economic growth. India has emerged as one of Africa's largest trading partners. African nations benefit from access to one of the world's largest consumer markets, while India imports essential commodities such as oil, minerals, and agricultural products. Secondly, technology transfer and capacity building has been realized in the relations between Africa and India. One of the major advantages of India-Africa relations for African nations has been the transfer of technology and expertise from India to Africa. Through various initiatives, India has shared its experiences and knowledge, especially in sectors like information, technology, healthcare, and agriculture. There is also infrastructure development that has been realized between Africa and India relations. India has been actively involved in building infrastructures across Africa, which is critical for economic development. Indian companies have contributed to projects ranging from roads and railways to power and telecommunication networks. We look at diplomatic and political support. India's diplomatic engagement with Africa has strengthened Africa's voice on the global stage. India has been a strong advocate for African interests in international forums like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and climate change negotiations. While Africa has benefited from its relationship with India, there are also disadvantages and challenges that arise from this partnership. Now we are going to look at the disadvantages for Africa. One of the criticisms of Africa's relationship with India is the potential for economic dependency, particularly in sectors such as natural resources exports. While India has become a significant market for African commodities, Africa remains largely dependent on raw materials and material exports, which leaves it vulnerable to fluctuation in global commodity prices. We move on to environmental and social concerns. The rapid pace of Indian investments in Africa, particularly in the extractive and agricultural sectors, has raised concerns about the environmental and social impact of these projects. Large-scale land acquisition by India companies have sometimes been associated with land grabbing and the displacement of local communities. Now we look at advantages for India. India has also gained significant benefits from its growing relationship with Africa, particularly in terms of securing energy resources. To start off, we have energy security. Africa plays a crucial role in India's energy security as India imports a substantial amount of its crude oil from African countries. Secondly, We have geopolitical influence and strategic partnership. India's engagement with Africa is not only driven by economic benefits or interests, but also by its desire to enhance its geopolitical influence. By strengthening ties with African nations, India aims to increase its presence on the global stage and counterbalance the influence of other powers, particularly China. The relationship between Africa and India has also its disadvantages despite having numerous advantages. One of it is competition from China. One of the biggest challenges for India in Africa is the presence of China, which has established itself as Africa's largest trading partner and dominant investor. Moving on the disadvantages of the relationship between Africa and India, we also have political instability and security risks. Many African countries face political instability, conflicts, and security challenges which can affect Indian investments and business operations. Indian companies have had to navigate complex political environments in countries like Sudan, Libya, Democratic Republic of Congo, etc., where civil conflicts and political turmoil have created uncertainties. This sums up our presentation of Africa-India relationship. Thank you.